The cake was already packed in the car. Triple chocolate or ganache, custom ordered from that little bakery downtown, one Mom used to rave about. I had my best button-down iron crisp, my watch shining like new, and even got myself a fresh haircut just for the occasion. It was supposed to be a big night for all of us, her dad's retirement party, a family celebration. I showed up to the banquet hall half an hour early, like I always do. I'm the kind of guy who likes to lend a hand, to feel like I'm part of the work, not just the party. But the second I pushed open the doors, I felt it. Something wasn't right. The decorations were already hanging, the tables filled, the room buzzing with laughter and the clink of glasses. And then I saw her, Natalie, my wife. She was wearing that red dress, the one she once swore she'd never put on again because it was too snug around her arms. She was laughing it up with her sister Madison and her cousin Blake, the same Blake who used to flirt with her back before we tied the knot. At first, she didn't notice me. Or maybe she did and just decided to pretend otherwise. Either way, I walked straight over, loud enough for a few folks nearby to hear me say, "I'll bring dessert to the family barbecue tomorrow." Her head jerked around so fast I thought she might snap her neck. And then came that look, small, smug, a little pitiful. A smirk burned into my memory forever. "Oh," she said, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear, "you weren't invited?" It wasn't a real question. It was a knife to the gut. Madison didn't blink. She just pulled out her phone, casually scrolling through pictures, tables set up, speeches happening, people smiling together, and not a single shot had me in it. "It's kind of a close family thing," Natalie added with a shrug, sipping her wine like she wasn't driving a dagger right through me in front of 50 people. I didn't argue. I didn't say a word. I just turned around and walked out. It wasn't until I hit the parking lot that my hands started shaking. That's when I pulled out my phone and canceled the venue, the very one they'd somehow forgotten I had paid for. They had thought of everything: catering, music, speeches, but not once had they thought of me. Not the husband. That was the first moment I let it creep into my mind. Something's wrong. But what I didn't realize that night, what I couldn't have dreamed, was just how rotten things really were underneath it all. You see, when you marry someone, you build a whole world together in your mind. You imagine late-night talks, shared jokes, raising kids, getting old side by side. But what happens when the person you trusted most, the one who cried when they promised forever, starts looking at you like you're just a background actor in their show? I spent 2 hours just driving that night, no real destination. Ended up sitting outside a gas station just past the edge of town, sipping bitter coffee and trying to glue the pieces of my life back together. The same question kept circling my mind. How long has she been planning this? The next morning, something else caught my eye. Her phone, usually glued to her hand like an extra limb, was sitting out on the kitchen counter. Unlocked. Maybe it was fate. Maybe God just decided it was time for me to see the truth. Because what I found on that phone made the stunt at the party look like child's play. Photos. Messages. Hotel bookings. And a name I didn't recognize, Kieran. One message said, "Can't wait to see you tonight." Another one had her giggling, "He still thinks I'm at book club, LOL." And then another one, "Or that thing I like. Don't make me wait too long." Smiling face with horns. I stood there in the kitchen, her phone in one hand and my entire world crumbling to dust in the other. 15 minutes later, Natalie came downstairs, yawning and stretching like she didn't have a care in the world. She leaned over and kissed my cheek, all sweet and casual, like she hadn't just gutted everything we built. I just watched her. Memorized the way her lips curled, the shine of her lip gloss. Wondered if it was his. She reached for her phone. I didn't move. I just kept watching. The second her fingers brushed the screen, her whole face changed, tight, panicked. "Where is it?" she asked, her voice sharp. I handed it over, smiling. "Don't worry," I said. I didn't delete a thing. Her face went ghost white, then flushed hot with anger. She sneered at me. "You had no right." "No," I said calmly. "I had every damn right." That was the moment the curtain started to tear down. The retirement party? That was just the appetizer. The main course was still cooking. And I wasn't the guy bringing dessert anymore. I was a man standing at the start of a war. At first, she didn't even bother trying to lie. She just stood there, frozen in place like a kid caught stealing cookies. Then, like flipping a switch, she changed. That condescending tone, the one she uses when she wants to flip the blame, came sliding out. "I can't believe you went through my phone. That's such a violation of trust." I laughed. I actually laughed. Not because any of it was funny, God knows it wasn't, but because hearing her talk about trust felt like some kind of cruel joke from the universe. I had handed her my whole life, my heart, my trust, every last piece of me, and what did she do? She was sneaking off to meet a guy named Kieran in hotel rooms while I was out working overtime, busting my ass to pay for her yoga retreats and Botox appointments. She rolled her eyes, crossed her arms over her chest, and said, "It's not what you think." "No," I said, stepping in closer, gripping the edge of the kitchen island like it was the only thing keeping me from flying apart. "Then why don't you go ahead and explain it to me?" I held up her phone, the screen still lit up, the messages glowing like a stage light on a guilty actor. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Wear that thing I like." Sounds pretty damn straightforward to me. She lunged and yanked the phone out of my hand. "I was lonely." "Okay," she snapped. "You're always working. You never ask me how I feel. You haven't even touched me in weeks." And instead of talking to me about it, I said through gritted teeth, "You crawled into bed with some guy named Kieran and let him do God knows what, while I was out busting my back to pay for the roof over our heads." Her face twisted up in anger. "Don't act like you're some kind of saint," she shot back. "You've been emotionally checked out for months." That's when I slammed my fist down on the counter. Not enough to break it, just enough to snap her little performance in half. "You're deflecting," I said, my voice low and deadly calm. "This isn't about me. You lied. You planned it. You hid it. Don't you dare stand there and act like I pushed you into cheating." And then the waterworks started. But not the kind that come from real guilt or shame. No, these were strategic tears, the kind she used when she wanted to dodge the hard questions. Kieran made me feel wanted again," she whimpered. "He listens to me. He compliments me. You used to be like that." I turned my back before I said something I couldn't take back. My whole body was shaking, heart pounding, jaw locked, hands trembling from a mix of rage and disbelief. I had played this moment over and over in my head after finding those messages, but nothing could have prepared me for hearing it out loud. For hearing my wife tell me that another man made her feel wanted. I swallowed the lump in my throat and asked, "How long?" Silence. "How long, Natalie?" She sighed, almost like she was annoyed. "Almost 6 months," she muttered. 6 months. Half a damn year. 2 seasons. Birthdays. Holidays. Sunday mornings in bed. All of it, a lie. I pressed on, voice hollow. "Were you with him the night your mom had surgery?" The pieces were snapping together now, a sick jigsaw puzzle I never wanted to finish. She stared at the floor. "You said you were stuck in traffic," I whispered. "I waited for you. For hours." Her voice cracked, barely a whisper. Yeah." A pit opened up in my gut so fast I thought I was going to be sick right there on the kitchen floor. She hadn't just betrayed me, she had abandoned her own mother to go play house with some other man. I turned and stormed toward the hallway closet, yanking out my gym bag. I started stuffing it with whatever I could grab, change of clothes, toothbrush, phone charger, anything to get me the hell out of that house before I lost it completely. "Where are you going?" she cried, her voice rising with panic. "I don't know," I muttered. "Anywhere but here." She rushed to block the door. "We should talk about this. You can't just leave." I stared at her, really stared at her, and saw a stranger standing in my home. "You already left, Natalie," I said, my voice dead. "Months ago. I'm just catching up." As I stepped out the door, I heard her mutter something under her breath. I stopped in my tracks. "What was that?" I asked, without even turning around. She looked me straight in the eye, no flinching, no hesitation. "You were never enough for me." That was it. The kill shot. The one that finished what her affair and her lies hadn't been able to. The bullet that shattered the last tiny piece of hope I had been clinging to. I didn't answer. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just walked to my car, slid behind the wheel, and drove. The pain wasn't sharp, it was a heavy, suffocating weight, like dragging a 100-pound chain behind my chest. Every memory we ever made, the vacations, the holidays, our wedding night, all of it felt poison now. She was right about one thing. I wasn't enough for her. But maybe, just maybe, she was never enough for me either. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept driving, letting the miles stretch out behind me, until the sky faded into a pale, empty gray. Eventually, I ended up at some rundown motel off the freeway, the kind of place where the walls are thin, the remote is sticky, but nobody knows your name. And for once, that was enough. Lying there in the dark, staring up at the cracked ceiling, I tried to picture her face, the way it used to look when she smiled at me. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find it. All I could see was that smirk she wore at her dad's party. The way she looked at me that night, it stuck with me. Like I was some inconvenience. a background prop in her perfectly polished little life. The next morning, I powered up my phone and saw the flood of messages from Natalie. We need to talk. Come home. Don't throw everything away over one mistake. And then the one that actually made me laugh, sharp and bitter enough to hurt. You're being dramatic. Dramatic. She had spent months dismantling our marriage behind my back, treating our life together like some covert operation, and somehow, I was the dramatic one. But there was another message too. One that froze me in place. It was from an unknown number. Hey man, I didn't know she was married. She told me you guys were separated. I'm sorry. Kieran. It took me a second to process it. I read it once. Twice. A third time. He didn't know. I sat there, staring at the screen for a solid 5 minutes, before finally tossing the phone across the bed. My pulse was hammering again, but it wasn't just rage this time. It was something else, something colder. A flicker of clarity. Kieran wasn't some scheming homewrecker. He was just another pawn. Another line Natalie had carefully built and tended to like a garden of poison. And I realized. I couldn't let this sit. I grabbed my keys and drove back to the house. I wasn't even sure what I was going to say, maybe nothing. Maybe everything. When I walked through the front door, there she was. Standing in the kitchen like nothing had happened. Coffee in hand. Wearing my old college sweatshirt like it was any other morning. Hey, she said softly, as if she was welcoming me home from work. You look tired. I stared at her, silent. Just trying to remember why in the hell I ever loved this woman. She looked so normal. So calm. The same woman who once danced barefoot in our living room to Fleetwood Mac on our anniversary. But it was all a mask. Underneath, she was nothing but rot. I got your messages, I said, my voice low. She nodded, sipping her coffee like she'd been expecting that. And, I added, I got a message from Kieran. That made her flinch. Just a tiny, blink and you miss it twitch, but I caught it. What did he say? She asked, voice too casual. He said he didn't know you were married, I said. Said you told him we were separated. Her expression shifted, somewhere between defensive and couldn't care less. Well, she said, shrugging, it's not like we were really together these past few months. You slept in my bed last week, I said, voice tight. She rolled her eyes, like I was being ridiculous. So now you want to cling to technicalities? No, I said, stepping closer. I want to understand how someone who looked me in the eyes, swore forever to me, could turn around and lie with every breath they took. You think you're perfect, she snapped. Just because you didn't cheat doesn't make you some kind of saint. You gave up on us years ago. You made me feel invisible. And instead of telling me that, I shot back. You went sneaking around with some guy from a gym. Her eyes narrowed, hard and cold. You know what, she hissed. Maybe Kieran made me feel alive. Maybe that's something you forgot how to do. The words hit like a hammer, but not because they were true. Because in that moment, I realized she believed them. She had rewritten the story so completely in her own head that she saw herself as the victim now. You could have left, I said, my voice breaking just a little. You could have walked away with some shred of dignity. But you didn't. You stayed and poisoned everything we had left. She leaned back against the counter, wearing that smug little smile again. You act like this is some grand tragedy, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. It wasn't perfect. We both know that. You're just pissed because I ended it first. And that was it. That was the moment I knew there was no going back. No apology. No therapy sessions. No couples retreat out in the woods. There was no fixing this. Not because of what she did, but because of who she had become. I walked upstairs, grabbed my duffel bag, and filled it with the last of my things. She didn't follow. Didn't beg me to stay. Didn't shed a single tear. As I zipped it closed, I looked around the room one last time, the framed photo of us on the nightstand, the perfume bottles on her dresser, the bed we had shared. Now contaminated by a truth I couldn't unsee. I walked past her on my way out. She didn't even look up. Just kept scrolling through her phone like none of it mattered. And maybe to her, it didn't. I ended up crashing at my buddy Evan's place for a few days. He didn't push, didn't pry. Just handed me a cold beer the first night and said, when you're ready to talk, I'm here. Until then, the couch is yours. That's the kind of friend every man needs when his whole world gets flipped inside out. The silence at Evan's place was deafening, but it was honest. No fake apologies. No twisted words. No lingering perfume in the air to haunt me. And the thing about betrayal is, it doesn't knock you flat all at once. It doesn't hit you all at once. It comes in waves. Sometimes it's a jolt of pure rage, the kind that makes your fist clench before you even realize it. Other times, it's this quiet, dull ache, like an old cracked tooth you forgot about until something cold hits it just right. But the worst part? The remembering. It sneaks up on you, sucker punches you when you least expect it. Like when you suddenly hear her hum while cooking, or picture her curled up in my old hoodie when she wasn't feeling good, or the way she used to grab my hand under the table at dinner parties, like it was our secret. And just when those memories start to sting, my mind would shift back to the smirk, the hotel receipts, the way she stepped right over my heart like it was nothing more than a puddle in her way. One night, Evan finally sat me down. He cracked open a second beer, leaned back, and said, "You gonna tell me what the hell happened, or do I need to start guessing?" So I told him. Everything. From the retirement party ambush to the messages on her phone, to Kieran's apology. Evan didn't interrupt once. Just sat there, staring into his drink like he was trying to figure out how the hell this was even real. When I finally finished, he muttered, "Damn, man." Then he said something that stuck to me like glue. "You've got to decide if you're trying to fix something that's broken, or if you're finally walking away from something that was fake all along." I didn't say anything right then, but those words stayed with me, heavy and cold, like a stone in my pocket I couldn't put down. All for the next week, I kept running it over in my head. I tried to imagine what life would look like if I stayed, if I tried to patch it all up. But every version of that future had the same ugly thread running through it. I didn't trust her anymore. And without trust, what the hell was I even fighting for? On the 5th day, she showed up. Evan was out. I heard the knock, opened the door, and there she was, wearing sunglasses even though the sun had already set. Hair done up. Lipstick flawless. She looked more like she was headed to brunch with her girlfriends than standing on the front step of the marriage she burned to the ground. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice small. I didn't say anything, just stepped aside and let her in. She didn't sit right away. She just stood there, smoothing her hands down the sides of her jeans like she was nervous. "I messed up," she started. "I know that. I'm not here to pretend I didn't. But I've been thinking, maybe this doesn't have to be the end." She talked like we were renegotiating a lease, not sifting through the ashes of a life she chose to burn. I leaned back against the wall, arms crossed, just watching her try to piece herself back together. "Kieran was a mistake," she said. "He wasn't you. I should have told you. I was just scared. I didn't want to lose you." I shook my head slowly. "You lost me the second you decided I was disposable." Her eyes welled up instantly. "It wasn't like that," she whispered. "It was exactly like that," I said, stepping forward. "You laughed in my face at your dad's party. You lied to Kieran about being separated. You made your choice, Natalie." She finally sat down on the edge of the couch, folding in on herself like she didn't know what to say next. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she said, voice cracking. "I swear." I shook my head again. "You always mean that," I said. "Every lie, every secret, you never mean for it to happen. But it always does." A long, hollow silence filled the room. I watched her, wondering if any part of her actually regretted what she did, or if this was just another one of her acts. "I want to fix it," she whispered. "No," I said. "You want to reset it. You want to wipe away the consequences without ever facing the choices that got us here." She looked up at me then, really looked. And maybe, in that moment, she finally saw it. That the man she thought would always forgive her, always come back, wasn't standing in front of her anymore. "You're not even going to try," she said, voice shaking. "I tried for years," I said quietly. "You just didn't notice until I stopped." She stood up, her face hardening again, walls snapping back into place. "Fine," she said. "Then this is on you." I smiled, bitter and cold. "Of course it is." She walked to the door, hand on the knob, but hesitated and turned back one last time. "You'll regret this," she said. "Maybe," I said. "But if I do, at least it'll be knowing I finally stood up for myself." The door clicked shut behind her. And this time, the silence she left didn't feel empty. It felt clean. 2 weeks slipped by. Not a single word from her. No drunk texts. No fake apologies. No late-night phone calls dripping with regret. At first, it felt like withdrawal. My mind kept trying to pull me back to the memories. The weight of her beside me in bed. The sound of her voice in the morning. The small habits we built without even thinking. But every time I started to miss it, I reminded myself. Those habits were poisoned. Every kiss. Every meal. Every joke whispered under the covers. All of it tainted by the lies she was hiding, by the messages she sent, by the hotel rooms she slipped into while I lay sleeping beside her. So I filed for divorce. It wasn't a big, dramatic thing. No cinematic music swelling in the background. Just a thick packet of papers. Signed in silence. Slid into a manila envelope. I didn't even call to tell her. Let her find out the same way she left me. Alone. This part is strong and emotional, you're building. A few days later, Evan helped me haul the last of my stuff out of the house. She wasn't home. Part of me had half hoped she would be. I wanted to see her face. Wanted to see what kind of expression she'd wear when she saw me carrying out the final pieces of the life she set on fire. But she never showed. It was just me, Evan, and a heavy silence, broken only by the sounds of drawers opening and cardboard tape ripping. When I grabbed the last box from the bedroom, I found something tucked in the nightstand drawer, a note. It wasn't romantic. Just 3 simple sentences in her handwriting. I know I ruined this. I never deserved you. I'm sorry I let the worst parts of me win. I read it twice, folded it once, and tossed it straight into the trash. Because by then, it was too damn late for sorry. It was too late for anything. The last thing I took was a framed picture of us from our wedding day. I didn't take it to keep. I just couldn't leave it behind for her. On the way out, I dropped it into the dumpster behind the house. There was something strangely freeing about it, like dragging a carcass out into the open where it couldn't rot in secret anymore. I moved into a small apartment downtown. Nothing fancy, just 2 rooms and a kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. I started going to the gym again, not for revenge, not to glow up and flood social media with thirst traps like she probably expected. No, I did it for me. To feel strong in my own skin again. To feel like I was taking back my life, one little piece at a time. I reconnected with old friends. Took a weekend trip with my brother. Started writing again, something I hadn't done in way too long. I started filling up pages in a beat-up old journal, too. Pages full of raw, bleeding honesty. Not for anyone else. Just for me. Just so I could look in the mirror and know I wasn't burying my pain under fake smiles anymore. Every now and then, her name would pop up in a group chat with mutual friends. Someone would casually mention she was seeing someone new. Kieran, maybe. Or maybe some other poor guy she'd spin her web around. It didn't matter. The wreckage was hers to live with now, not mine. One night, around 2 in the morning, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't pick up. Didn't even flinch. But the voicemail played automatically while I stared at the screen. Hey, it's me. I heard about the papers. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Anyway, I just wanted to say, I really did love you. In my own way. And I know that's not enough. I don't know. I hope you're okay. I deleted it before she could finish. Because the truth I'd carry with me for a long, long time, was that the real loss wasn't losing her. It was realizing she was never truly mine to begin with. I used to think betrayal was like fire. Explosive. Hot. Over quickly. But it's not. It's slow. Like rust. It eats at the foundation, piece by piece, quietly rotting everything you built until, one day, it all just collapses. And when you crawl out of the wreckage, coughing up dust, spitting out heartbreak, you realize something important. You're still alive. Bruised. Burned. But alive. And sometimes, being alive is enough to start again. Starting over wasn't nearly as poetic as people like to pretend. There weren't any movie-worthy epiphanies at sunrise. No deep, tearful moments of perfect clarity. It was just Tuesday mornings where I didn't check her location anymore. Saturday afternoons where I didn't spend an hour wondering why she hadn't texted back. Evenings where the silence wasn't threatening, it was a blessing. But the truth? She still came back sometimes. Not physically. In my head. Out of nowhere. I'd be standing in line at the grocery store and hear a laugh that sounded just like hers. I'd pass someone wearing her perfume and freeze, every muscle tensing like the past could reach out and drag me under again. And then I'd remember. The hotel bookings. The red dress. The way her voice sliced through me when she said, "You were never enough for me." Healing wasn't some straight path uphill. It was crooked, messy steps. Some days, I felt like I was 10 feet above water, breathing easy. Other days, it felt like I was drowning in memories I didn't ask for and sure as hell didn't want. The first time I saw her again after everything was at a mutual friend's birthday party. I hadn't even planned to go. But Evan insisted, said I couldn't hide forever. I told him I didn't care if she showed up. That was a lie. Of course I cared. She came in late, wearing black. Her hair was longer now. She looked the same, and completely different. Like someone wearing her face, but walking around with a whole new soul stitched in badly. When she saw me, she looked surprised. Not sorry. Not nervous. Just surprised. We didn't speak. Not even a nod. And honestly, that said more than words ever could. She stayed on her side of the room, and I stayed on mine. At one point, I caught her glancing over at me. I didn't look away. I wanted her to see it. That I was still standing, still breathing, still whole, even after everything she'd done to break me. When the night finally wound down, I didn't stick around for long goodbyes. I slipped out quietly, the door clicking shut behind me. And that's when I realized something that shook me more than any anger or heartbreak ever had. I didn't feel bitter. I didn't feel furious. I didn't feel anything at all. And that scared me. Because indifference, real, heavy indifference, that's the true graveyard of love. It's the final nail in the coffin. It means the war is over. It means you've let go of waiting for an apology that never comes, for an explanation that would never be enough, for justice you're never going to get. It means you've buried the old version of yourself. The man who would have waited, who would have forgiven, who would have believed the lies one more time just to stop the bleeding. That man? He died the night she smiled and told me I wasn't invited to her father's party. What stood in his place now was someone different. Someone who knew his worth had nothing to do with how she chose to remember him. In time, I met someone new. It didn't happen fast. It didn't happen easily. It happened slowly, cautiously, one broken step at a time. She didn't ask for too much. She didn't try to fix me. She just listened. And when I finally told her about Natalie, not every detail, just enough to make my walls visible, she didn't rush to say, "I'd never do that." Instead, she said, "I'm sorry that happened to you. You didn't deserve it." Those words, simple as they were, broke something inside me. Not the kind of break that wrecks you. The kind that releases all the pressure you didn't realize you'd been holding. The kind that finally lets you breathe again. It wasn't love yet. Maybe it never would be. But it was safe. And after everything I had been through, safe felt like a goddamn miracle. One night, I found myself standing out on my tiny balcony, drink in hand, watching the city lights blink back at me. I thought about it all, the lies, the betrayal, the hurt. And then I thought about the man who had stood through every bit of it and never folded. I raised my glass to no one, just lifted it quietly and whispered. To him. To the man who stayed loyal when nobody was watching. To the man who chose dignity over revenge. To the man who finally walked away, not because he stopped loving her, but because he finally started loving himself. A few months later, an envelope showed up in my mailbox. No return address. The handwriting on the front was neat, too careful. I recognized it instantly. Natalie. I almost tossed it without opening it. But old habits and curiosity still had a few claws left in me. Inside was a letter. No games. No theatrics. No spritz of perfume on the paper to try and sweeten the sting. Just ink and confession. She wrote that she had finally started therapy. That for the first time in her life, she was sitting in the mess she used to run from. She admitted Kieran had ended things not long after everything blew up. Apparently, cheating hadn't turned out to be the fairy tale she imagined it would be. He saw through her fast. Maybe because he hadn't built years of love and blind faith around her like I had. She said she didn't expect forgiveness. Wasn't trying to reignite anything. She just wanted, for once, to say the truth out loud. And here's the thing. Reading her words didn't make me feel triumphant. It didn't feel like winning. It just felt done. She finally said everything I used to pray she would. She admitted she tore down everything we had, not because she stopped loving me, but because deep down, she never believed she deserved it. She said she was afraid that one day I would leave her, so she decided to beat me to it, in the cruelest way she could. She called it self-sabotage. I called it cowardice. But at least now, she owned it. And as I folded the letter back up and slid it into a drawer I barely opened, I realized something even bigger. Owning her mistakes didn't change my path. It just made it easier to keep walking away from the wreckage without ever needing to look back again. I folded the letter back into the envelope and set it down. I didn't text her. I didn't write back. And honestly, I didn't even feel the pull to. Closure wasn't a phone call. It wasn't some emotional sit-down at a cafe, full of tears and half-baked apologies. Closure was this. Holding the words I once would have died to hear and feeling nothing. The woman I married had disappeared long before she ever climbed into someone else's bed. And the woman who wrote that letter? She wasn't my villain anymore. She wasn't anything. Just another stranger I didn't need to mourn. Life didn't magically turn into some picture-perfect fairy tale after that. There wasn't some golden glow of everything happens for a reason. But it got better. Slowly. Steadily. I found peace in the small, quiet things. Cooking dinner by myself, and liking the silence that came with it. reading late into the night without checking the clock, smiling at a stranger on the sidewalk and meaning it. I stopped needing people to understand what I had been through. The ones who mattered already did. And the rest? They didn't matter. And then, one random morning, sitting across from Tiffany over burnt coffee and a terrible jazz playlist, she reached across the table, brushed her fingers over my hand, and said, "You don't flinch anymore when I say I love you." I didn't even realize I had stopped flinching. That's when I knew. I had made it out of the storm. I had scars, yeah, but I also had something stronger than anger, stronger than regret. I had peace. And that peace? It wasn't handed to me. It wasn't something anyone else gave me. It was earned. I never needed revenge. I didn't need her to feel what I felt. That need, that desperate swinging at shadows, that belonged to the man I used to be. The man drowning in betrayal. The man I am now? He's not bitter. He's awake. He's free. And if you're reading this, if you're still bleeding, still waiting, still stuck hoping for an apology that'll never come, hear me loud and clear. You don't need closure from the one who broke you. You just need to love yourself more than you love the idea of them. Walk away. Let the silence say what screaming never could. Because that version of you, the one still hoping, still hurting, he deserves peace too. Exactly 1 year after I walked out of that house, I stood in front of my mirror, buttoning up a clean white shirt. No special reason. No fancy event. I just wanted to dress like the man I had become. Stronger. Clearer. Lighter. Behind me, the apartment was quiet. Warm. Safe. Tiffany was still asleep, curled up in the covers, a little frown etched across her forehead from dreaming. That frown used to remind me of pain. Now, it reminded me of trust. She hadn't fixed me. She never tried to. She just held space for me. For the man who decided to rebuild himself, piece by piece. I caught my own reflection and thought about the man I used to be. The man who showed up to a party carrying a cake he wasn't even invited to. The man who stood there silent while his wife humiliated him with a smirk. The man who thought loyalty meant suffering in silence. That man wasn't weak. He was just loyal to someone who didn't deserve it. And now? Now, I'm not anyone's second choice. Not a backup plan. Not a placeholder until something shinier comes along. I'm not just surviving what she did to me. I'm thriving in spite of it. Later that day, I grabbed my camera and walked to the park. I took pictures of strangers laughing, kids chasing pigeons, couples holding hands like the world hadn't broken them yet. I sat on a bench for an hour, not doing anything, just breathing, not haunted, not wondering where she was or if she regretted it, because it's not my story anymore. She's just a footnote in a book I've already closed. And the man sitting there now? He's not bitter. He's not broken. He's better. If there's one thing I could tell anyone still standing in the ashes of betrayal, it's this. Don't chase explanations. Don't lose yourself trying to rewrite someone else's lies. You didn't lose them. They lost you. And that's enough. Walk away. Walk without looking back. Because everything you were trying to find in them, the love, the validation, the safety, you'll find it inside yourself. Eventually. And when you do, it won't be loud. There won't be fireworks or a standing ovation. It'll just be peace. And that peace? It'll be the loudest, most beautiful silence you've ever known.